our action. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tani. It really highlighted the complexity of how national governments are dealing with ocean issues by the range of agencies and ministries involved in that, and some of the key issues of the need for science that is an important prerequisite for knowing the ocean as a basis for then protecting and sustainably using. And I think those really sort of highlight that the sort of the key areas in which we need to be thinking about what we can do to improve the governance and legal regime. So Salvatore, this is your bread and butter over there at UNESCO. Let us know what you think.
Thank you, Paul, and good afternoon, everyone. Enchanté d'être ici. I'm a biological oceanographer by education, but subsequently I became interested in the policy side of the oceans, and in fact I have been involved in international scientific cooperation related programs and activities and policy development processes for the past 16 years now with a number of institutions, intergovernmental organizations. So I guess what I will try and bring here is the scientific perspective, but in an intergovernmental context, which to me is pretty different from what science is in an academic context. I think first of all it's important to sort of recall what we are talking about. We heard some very pertinent and useful definitions of the open and deep ocean from a legal standpoint, but maybe we would like to remind ourselves that we are talking about an area which is out of reach, which is extremely vast. Normally we tend to say that the oceans cover 70% of the planet. That is also only in surface terms. But if we speak about volume, there is no point of comparison, element of comparison with the land. That area out there and down there is undergoing some change. And at the same time, there are so many things that we don't know about those areas. But there are also things that we do know. For example, we know that the climate change issue is having an impact in terms of ocean acidification and the capacity of oceans to act as a carbon sink. There are some newly discovered properties and processes of the deep ocean. We used to think, the scientific community, that it was a very stable environment, and recently there are a couple of papers published by Dan Navarro and other colleagues that in fact demonstrate that there are high rate ecological processes taking place in the oceans in terms of driven essentially by bacteria, archaea, and viruses in terms of carbon sequestration especially. There is a very ambitious program called the Census of Marine Life, which has federated many scientists from all around the world, a truly international exercise. And one of the key findings of the Census of Marine Life, which unfortunately is bound to finish because it was conceived as a time-bound program, and maybe we should be thinking about some kind of way of keeping it up, is that when you sample in the deep ocean, there is a 50-50%, you have 50% chances to discover a new species. And that's exactly what they've done in the past 10 years. So a fantastic environment. I personally see issues related to areas, marine areas beyond national jurisdiction, as an opportunity. The current debate is a great opportunity to do things right, which is not what we did with the tropical forest, which is not what we have been able or not been able to do thus far with coral reef ecosystems. Maybe we will have more chance with the deep coral reef ecosystems. And why do we have a great opportunity? Because I think the human impact so far is relatively limited, although we should listen carefully to what Matt told us. If I may say that, Matt, not everyone knows that you used to be a fisher folk, and that you know what you are talking about before moving to the other side of the table. And we, all of us here, speak out of expertise and experience. I have a great respect for Eli and his perspective that we do have legal solutions at hand, but maybe we haven't been using those solutions effectively enough, and I'll come back to that. Let me first say what I mean when I say we have the opportunity to do things right. First, I think we can all agree that that area out of reach, hugely vast, is because it is relatively not relatively preserved, relatively speaking, especially the deeper areas. We can, in the context of the current legal regime, which is the Convention on the Law of the Sea and the Convention on Biological Diversity, we can maybe succeed in meeting, achieving some of the Rio principles, for example, in terms of intragenerational equity and intergenerational equity. Maybe we have a chance with the high seas, with the deep ocean, to be able to leave, to pass those areas onto the new generations. That's exactly what intergenerational equity means. Maybe we have a chance, as of now, to come up with solutions, not necessarily of a legal nature, which would allow for intragenerational equity to be met in terms of everyone on this planet being able to access the resources which are available in those areas and to benefit equitably from the utilization of those resources. I mentioned the Convention on Biological Diversity, although there is a very important nuance there that should be made. There is an article of the CBD, Article 22.2, which says that the CBD applies only to the marine environment only to the extent that it is consistent with provisions under UNCLOS. In addition, which is the Convention on the Law of the Sea. In addition to that, the CBD is a convention which has a sort of a vocation in terms of areas within, provisions that apply to areas within national jurisdiction. But the CBD can apply to areas beyond national jurisdiction in relation to processes and activities which adversely affect marine biodiversity. So that's a great chance for the CBD, the Convention on Biological Diversity, and the Convention on the Law of the Sea to work together.